Hello everyone, welcome back. And today I'm back with another React Native project. And this time we are gonna build a fitness app. So if you're new to the channel, then do subscribe the channel for more projects like this one. So without further wasting any time, let me show you the demo of the app. This is the welcome page, and if you refresh the application, you will see these animations. And the same goes on the home screen. You will see this beautiful animation in the exercises. And at the top, you can see we have this image carousel with the parallax effect. I'll show you how you can build this. This has very smooth effect when you scroll the image. And at the bottom, you can see we have the list of exercises which animated from the bottom. If I open a card, you will see all the exercises for that body part and all the images are animating. And if you click on an exercise, it will further open a model to show all the information about that exercise, and you will see all the data just fades in from the bottom. Similarly, you can open the exercises for all the other body parts as well, and it will list all the exercises for that body part. So this was a brief demo of the app, and if you want to create professional apps like this one, then this is the video for you. You're going to learn a lot by building this app. I'll be using Expo router to build this app, and you'll learn about models, Tailwind CSS, carousel, and fetching data from the APIs. We'll also use animations in our app, and for that we'll be using React Native Reanimated. So if you find this video helpful, do like the video and subscribe the channel, and let's start building this app. First, you need to go to Expo website, and in the sidebar you will see routing, and under routing you need to click on installation, and here you will see this command that creates a latest Expo app with tabs. So we need to copy this command and move to terminal and just paste here. Now it's going to ask us about the application name, so let's name it fitness app and hit enter. Now this is going to take a couple of seconds to load all the boilerplate code, and this all depends on your internet speed. So just give it some seconds. And once it's done, you can close the terminal. And I've already opened the project in VS Code. So let me just drag that here and let's make it full screen. Now we're also gonna need an iPhone simulator. So let me drag my iPhone 14 Pro simulator and place it here. Now, first of all, we're gonna run this application to see how it looks like. So just open a terminal and write npm run iOS. This is going to build our app and send it to our Expo Go app on the iOS. So let's give it some seconds, and it's building. Okay, the app is running, and as you can see, we have two tabs at the bottom which we can click on. Okay, this is already implemented, and if you click on it, this opens a model. But we're going to remove all of this in a second because we'll be building from scratch. And if we look at the code, we have this app folder where all the code will go, and we don't really need tabs, so we'll be removing all of them. Then we have this assets folder where all the fonts and all the images data will go. And then we have components folder for all the components. We'll be removing all the default components because we are gonna start from scratch. And then we have constants, and here we will keep our dummy data. So let's start removing this data that we don't need. So first go to app folder, and here click all the files and all the folders and delete all of them. And as soon as we delete them, we will see this message where it says start creating a file in app directory, which we'll do in a second. So let's remove all the components as well. Just select all of them and delete them. And then we also not going to use the constants, so let's just remove this file. We'll just create another file later. Now in the images folder, I've already collected some of the images that we're going to use in our project, so let me just paste them here. And these are the images that we're going to use for the carousel and for the body parts list, so we'll use them later in the application. I'll leave the link of the GitHub repo for this project into the video description, so you can find all these assets there. So now let's move to app folder and start creating our first component. As we are using Expo router, so we don't really need to install any React navigation because Expo router makes routing very easy for us, where if we create a file, it will automatically create a route with that name as well. And if the file name is index, it will be found at a slash route. So this is our first screen. Just reload the application, this error will go away. Okay, we can see our first screen. So similarly, we can create other files and a route for that file will be automatically created based on the name of that file. So let's create a file about.jsx. Let's create a functional component and let's save this. Now currently we are not navigating to this component, so how do we see if the about route exists? So for that we need to run our application in web version. So let's press W, and this is going to compile our app for a website, and this has already opened a port on my second screen. So let me just copy the address, and once it's done we can go to this browser and paste the address here. And when I enter, you will see our first screen because that's the file that exists under slash route. And this is the file. This is the file currently being shown. And if you want to see if the about route exists, we can go slash about. And this is the about page that we just created. So this has already created a route for all the files and all the components are working. If you want to learn more about Expo router, I've already created a detailed video about creating basic and complex layouts in Expo router. I'll leave the link of that video into the video description. Now let's stop our server and start implementing native wind into our application because we'll be using Tailwind CSS for designing our application. So let's go to native wind website, and here we need to go to Expo tab, and first we need to install native wind. So let's just copy this and move to our application, open the terminal, and here write npm install native wind. And we also gonna install Tailwind CSS. So let's just copy this and move to terminal. Now we're not gonna install the latest version of Tailwind CSS because that has some issues. So instead we are gonna install Tailwind CSS 3.3.2. That is the stable version, and this is going to work just fine. Once that's done, we can move to the documentation, and next we're gonna run this command tailwind css init. This is going to create a tailwind configuration file. So just run this command into the terminal. Next we are gonna change the contents of the tailwind configuration file. These are just the directories in which we can use tailwind classes. So let's just copy this whole line and paste it in the configuration file. Let's just replace it. And in here you can specify all the directories in which you'll be using Tailwind classes. So it's looking for the app.js, but we don't have the app.js file. In our case, most of our code will live inside app directory and components directory. So let's specify these two directories here. Let's just copy this and paste it here, and let's just change this to components. Okay, so now we have specified this. Now it will make sure that in the app directory in here and in the components directory, we'll be able to use all the Tailwind classes. Now let's see what do we need to do next. And we need to add this Babel plugin for Tailwind. So let's just copy this plugin and move to our Babel configuration file. And let's just paste it here. Okay, let's save this. And that's it. Now we should be able to use all the Tailwind classes. So we can remove the styles and add class names. So let's move to our first component and try to center our content, but before that we need to run our application. So let's close this part of the terminal and run npm run iOS. This is going to build our app for iOS simulator. Now press R to reload. Okay, the app is building and we don't see any errors so far, so that's a good sign. Now let's try to give it a background of red 300 and see if it's working. Okay, it's working and we have successfully implemented native wind. Now let's try to center it. Let's give it a class name of flex1, justify center and item center. Okay, so the classes are working. Now before we design our welcome page, we need to make sure our app is responsive, and for that we can use the dimensions from React Native, or we can use other libraries to make our app responsive. I'll be using another library which is called React Native Responsive Screen. So this is the library that I'm talking about, and You can use this library to make your app responsive on almost all of the devices, as you can see in the demo image. So if you scroll down, you will see how we can use this library. They provide us with the HP and WP methods. These stand for the height percentage and the width percentage of the device. If I use HP 70, that will mean the 70% height of the current device, and we can use these functions for the font size as well to make our fonts responsive. So let's copy this command to install this library. Just open the terminal and paste this here. This is going to install this library. Okay, that's done. Now we need to copy the import statement for this library. So let's scroll down to this page, and we need this import statement so that we can use WP and HP methods. Now before we design our welcome page, we need one more library, which is Expo linear gradient. We need to add this library at the bottom of our welcome page. So let's just copy this installation command and move to our terminal and paste it here. Now this is going to install this library, then we can start designing our welcome page. Okay, that's done. Let's close the terminal. Let's reload our application to see if we have any errors. Okay, we don't have any errors. So now let's start designing. First, this is the container of our welcome page. So let's give it a class name of flex1 and flex and justify end, because we're going to display the content at the bottom. And here we're gonna use a component status bar from Expo, and we're gonna give it a style of light because we're going to use the light fonts in the status bar. Now let's add an image. That will be our background image, and let's give it a class name of height full, width full, and absolute. We are going to make it absolute because we need our content to show on top of this, and the source will be an image from our assets that we copied earlier, and the image name is welcome.png. Let's close this and save this. Okay, we can see the image, but now we see this white space at the bottom and the top, and this is coming from the default header from Expo router. So the way to hide this is create a file inside app directory underscore layout.jsx, and let's create a functional component, and here we need to return a component stack from Expo router, and inside this tag we're gonna add a property screen options, and inside these options we need to specify a property header shown to false. This is going to hide this header, and we will see our image as a full screen. Now that we have a full screen to play with, now let's go ahead and add a linear gradient after this image. So let me just import the linear gradient component, and first property will be the colors, and this is going to be an array of the colors where first color will be transparent, and that will be the top portion of this gradient, and the second color will be 18181B. It's a light gray color which is going to show at the bottom. So next we're going to style it and give it a height and width. Now using our responsive library, I'm going to give it WP100. That will mean 100% width of the current device, so it's going to take full width. Then for the height, we are going to use HP method, HP of 70, and that will mean 70% height of the current device, which will be up to here. So this area will be covered. Now let's add our ending and starting point for this gradient. So just write x 0.5 and y 0, and for the ending point we are going to give x 0.5 and y 0.8. Just write these values, and this will create a top to bottom linear gradient. And let's give it a class name of flex, justify end, padding bottom of 12, and a spacing vertical of 8. Okay, now let's close this, and inside this linear gradient we're going to add another view, and let's give it a class name of flex and item center, and inside this we are going to add another text view. So let's add text component, and inside this let's write best workouts. And when I save this, we'll see our gradient and the text. So this gradient goes from top to bottom, and the first color is transparent, then we have this gray color. So we have this text here, but it's black, so let's make it white. Text white. When I save this, you will see our text. Now I'm gonna style this workout text differently, so I'm going to wrap it inside another text view. And let's just copy this workout text inside here, and let's give it a class name, and let's give it a color of rose 500. Okay, now it's looking different. Okay, now let's style this and give it a font size of HP5. That will make it responsive as well. Okay, now we need to make it bold, so let's add a class name of text bold and tracking wide. Now it's looking good. Now we're just gonna copy this one more time for the second row of our punchline. So let's just copy this and write for you. And we don't need this text component, so let's just remove it. And now it will say best workouts for you. Okay, after this view, we are going to add another view for our button. So let's add a view and then add a touchable opacity. And inside this, we are going to add another text view that will say get started. And to be able to see it, we need to add a style for this text. So let's add a class name of text white and fonts bold and a tracking of whitest. Okay, we can see the text. Now let's make it bigger and give it a font size of HP3 so that it's responsive as well. Okay, it's looking good. Okay, next we're gonna style our button. So let's add a style and give it a height of HP7 and a width of WP80 so that it takes 80% width of the device. And let's add a class name to give it a background color of rose 500. Now you can see the button, so let's give it more classes, flex and item center and justify center and MX auto to make it centered and rounded full and a border of 2 pixels. And for the border color, let's add border neutral of 200 and let's save this. Now we have a beautiful button. Okay, so this screen is almost finished, but it looks very boring without the animations. So if I reload the application, you will see nothing happens. We just see the text and the image. So next we're gonna add animations to this screen. And for that, we're going to use React Native Reanimated 3.0. So let's go ahead and first install this library. First, you need to go to their website and hit get started. And this first command basically creates an Expo app with Reanimated already installed, but we already have an Expo app, so let's just install it manually. First, you need to copy this command and let's stop our server and just copy this command here and hit enter. This is going to install the library. Next, we're gonna add Babel plugin for the Reanimated. So let's just copy this and we need to make sure that it's the last plugin in the list. So let's move to our Babel configuration file and we need to copy it in the very last. And let's save this. Okay, next we're gonna run this command to empty the cache and start the server again. So let's just copy this command and first let's remove our app from recent apps and paste the command here. Now it has started the server. Now press I to open on iOS. Okay, we don't see any error, so that means it was successful, hopefully. Next, we're gonna add animation for our text and the button. And let's see how we can add animations. And the animations that we're gonna use are called layout animations. So let's see how we can use them. So these are the animations, and first we're gonna wrap our view inside animated library, and then we can use fade in and fade out animations. And I believe we can add more properties to them like duration and the animation style. We can also use this springify function to make our animation in a spring-like motion. Now we are going to use this fade in down animation. So let's move to our app. First we need to wrap our view inside animated. It will just auto import. It's not suggesting, so we need to import it manually. Let's just copy this import statement and paste it here, and we need to import the animated as well. Now first thing we need to do is wrap this in animated.view, and then we're gonna specify entering property. This will be the entering animation, and we're gonna use fade in down animation. And when I save this, you will see this is animating from the bottom. Now we can use other functions as well, like let's add a delay of 100 milliseconds and then add a springify function. Now it will animate after 100 milliseconds and it will be in a spring like motion. So let's just copy this for our second view, which is the button. So let's copy it here and let's increase the delay to 200 milliseconds. Now because of this increased delay, our button will animate after the text. So if I reload the app, you will see they animate one after another and it looks very smooth. And both have a spring-like animation, which I really like. So our welcome screen is finished, and in the next part we are gonna add home screen and add an image carousel with image parallax effect. So see you in the next video.